Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Crypto Council, we all know, has been established, Pakistan Crypto Council, by an executive order by the Prime Minister. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this development in the current market at a time when, of course, cryptocurrency is still something of a new phenomena. What this means for the future, what this means for Pakistan as a whole, and globally also, we'll be talking about that. And we also interestingly have Dr. Usman Chohan with us, who's an advisor to CAS on economy. He's also written 5 books on the subject. So we're glad to have him, and we can't wait to get into how, why, and what this means for Pakistan, what this means for our economy, and what we can expect in the next couple of years. We also have with us Barrister Safi Ghauri, who's a senior analyst, also a lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'd like to go into the legal issues at this time with traditional currency, of course, and with regard to cryptocurrency in particular. What kind of hitches, what kind of issues can arise overall? All of that today on Perspective. Dr. Usman, let me start with you. As far as cryptocurrency overall is concerned, there's still no regulatory framework for it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Right now, Pakistanis operate in a kind of regulatory gray zone, which means that they do own, they do trade, they do build up their wallets with crypto, but they haven't been governed by a systemic regulatory framework, and therefore they do it sort of in the shadows. Despite that, or perhaps because of that, Pakistanis have been very proactive in the crypto sphere. Estimates range from anywhere from 10 million to 40 million, which I think is a little bit too generous. But the fact is that for Pakistanis, especially because we have a large youth cohort, because there is a digitally savvy component of our society, they have been very active in that, particularly in the phases where the economy was in a little bit of difficulty. Because cryptocurrency offered a reasonable hedge, it offered them a degree of anonymity, it offered them a way to remit money without having any regulatory structures or any oversight, and so there has been a lot of appeal with cryptocurrency. So it is about time, some argue, that we do standardize this so that we can actually bring all of this into the fold for taxation, for oversight, for criminal prosecution, for anti-money laundering. There's so many elements to crypto where there is an argument for government to be involved, and it manages the innovation component, balances it with the oversight component.
I want to go into, of course, the regulatory side of things also, but first of all, how does this compare with the traditional, currency market overall, as far as cryptocurrency is concerned?
Cryptocurrencies exhibit certain features that are very different from traditional currencies. The first is that there is no central authority to emit this currency. Therefore, there is no one authority you can go to or lay the blame on for culpability, for excessive money supply, etc. It is very decentralized. The second factor is that it is quite accessible now thanks to online exchanges with whom you can trade money and then exchange for crypto, for stable coins, for other things. It's very decentralized. That's the other feature. But the third feature is that it's very volatile. The prices of cryptocurrencies tend to fluctuate in a wild manner that no government would allow for its own currency. So if you have an appetite for a decentralized system where you're engaged online, where you don't want to worry about government, and where you don't have, you certainly have the appetite for volatility, then cryptocurrency is up your alley.
Okay, fair enough. But in terms of this at this time, as far as where is Pakistan at this time in the larger framework of, for example, the cryptocurrency market? Where do you see us?
Well, it is one of the fastest growing. That is the first thing. But it is always difficult to point out because we rely on anecdote and inference. Cryptocurrencies, by their very nature, delve in a shadow world. So all we do is make inferences about wallets and try to compare them to IP addresses, and and therefore make a guess about it. But the guess number ends up being quite large. And I would say to you, as before, that it's anywhere between 10 million and 40 million. Even at the lower end, that is a massive number of people involved. So it is a large community in Pakistan. It's also a very fast growing community relative to the growth in other countries.
So having a Pakistan Crypto Council at this time will formalize things to a certain extent?
This is their ambition. Their ambition is to offer a regulatory framework and to bring in business deals, apparently, and to give options for how to let it evolve. For example, they want to focus on mining, which they don't have to. They want to focus on other things which they don't have to. It's really up to them. But the fact that it exists is a very strong signaling component. It signals to this community globally that we are interested in this digital tech stuff, and they've sort of leapfrogged into this world, which is kind of a cool thing.
And in terms of the SECP or the state bank, is there at this time a ban on crypto also?
Yes, in the sense that the SEC has always given negative advisory against crypto, which is to say that the State Bank of Pakistan, more specifically, has a duty to protect consumers in the financial realm, and therefore it has always issued advisories against this, that proceed at your own risk. This is not something that is regulated by us. It's not safe, so proceed with caution. So the State Bank has been very conservative about this, and most central banks around the world have been very conservative about this, because their mandate involves price stability and it involves monetary stability as well. So price stability and monetary stability. Therefore, they have never said go ahead with crypto necessarily. They've always said if you proceed with this, you are proceeding at your own risk. And the SECP has also commented on it, but all of the commentary that we have heard in Pakistan has not been with an executive mandate. It isn't to say this is illegal, this is legal. It is to say that proceed with caution.
Okay, fair enough. Also, I want to talk about, as far as blockchain technology is concerned. Does it actually work, and is it considered secure and transparent in your opinion?
Yes, but this is a very deep question you've asked. As you mentioned, I've written a lot on this. So in principle, blockchain technology, insofar as the technology, the science is concerned, is very secure.
Okay.
But then it operates in a human world, and it operates in a decentralized human world, and that's where it is insecure. So it's more about, like, for example, if you handed me a rifle and I asked you, is it safe? It is safe in that it was manufactured correctly, but what I do with that rifle is really up to me. I can use it to protect people, I can use it to assault people. It's that kind of thing, where blockchain technology is very robust because it's decentralized across a vast network of computers which all verify the data simultaneously, and therefore the integrity of its history is always intact. And it is so powerful a model that no country has the computing power or has deployed the computing power to bring down a major blockchain. It cannot be done. So for example, the largest is Bitcoin. Bitcoin has not been brought down because you require so much computing power to hijack the system. So it is robust. But then again, when you have these Bitcoins released from this blockchain, you can trade it, you can do what you want with it. And there have been many exchanges, online exchanges, that have been very corrupt. There have been scandals against them. Some have been indicted for prison, whether South Korea, US, Singapore, many countries. And that is the human factor, with the final product being misused according to their own wicked designs. So there is a safe part, which is the science, but then there's the human part, which is the ambiguous part of it, you see.
Dr. Usman, you keep talking about how it's decentralized.
Yes.
But isn't like having a crypto council centralizing it in a sense?
Yes, in a sense. In terms of regulation, it is centralizing the legality of it. But would a crypto council have the computing power to control the blockchain? No. It would just be the oversight mechanism, and yet all of the operations that happen amongst the blockchain community or the crypto community would still be decentralized. So then it is people's decisions to conform to that and stay within the margins of legality as issued by a regulatory framework, or to operate outside that and perhaps face prosecution.
So it's going to be, so it's really organic, the way that, what kind of trends it follows, or how erratic
Yes,
it is, in
it
your opinion?
absolutely is very organic in terms of how erratic it is, and cryptocurrencies are very erratic by nature. There have been two phases, 2018 and 2022, where the price collapsed because of what they call a crypto winter. The sentiment on crypto became so negative that people ran into other things, perhaps into cash or whatever. So there have been crypto winters and then what they call crypto summers. So there has been a lot of positivity in other phases. So 2024, it's positive again. 2019, positive again. So the cyclicality of this is extremely erratic, extremely erratic.
Right. Let me go to Safiullah Ghauri, who's also with us now. Ji, Safiullah, can you hear me?
Hi, Mahrukh. I can hear you.
Safiullah, there's, you've mentioned, of course, I know that you have some in-depth knowledge of cryptocurrency, and also the fact, the legal side of things. As far as the legal framework is concerned, is there a substantial legal framework surrounding cryptocurrency at this time?
Right, Mahrukh. So very clearly, as was stated by the Governor State Bank today in the morning, crypto remains illegal in Pakistan, and it is, despite whatever you might be reading in terms of the wonderful news that's coming in with the Pakistan Crypto Council and everybody talking about how we are going to become perhaps the center of the blockchain innovation. Pakistan still has a long way to go when it comes to legislative frameworks. Now, this is the case because, firstly, as you were just discussing, blockchain in itself is divided into many parts. So, for instance, there's a currency aspect that is to be adjudicated upon by the State Bank of Pakistan. There is the tokenization of aspect, the tokenization aspect that is looked into by the SECP. There is a criminal aspect that is looked into by the FIA. There is, of course, the fact that FMU, the Financial Monitoring Unit of Pakistan, the AML-CFT Authority, all of them have international commitments when it comes to terrorist financing and money laundering. So what we need right now is a all-arms approach in which everybody sits, and that has not happened with the Crypto Council as yet. With the Crypto Council, what we have is the State Bank, what we have is the SECP, what we have is the Ministry of Law and also the Ministry of IT, but we do not have, for instance, FIA, we do not have FMU, we do not have the AML Authority, we do not have some key enforcers who can carry this legislation forward. And without them, obviously, any discussion on crypto is at the moment at least a little premature until we have like a sort of like a mutual consensus between all the authorities on how it is to go. Now, it's also very important to understand that the Crypto Council itself is a creation of the Ministry of Finance, and it has been created under a set of sub rules. So it is a delegated legislation. This is to be kept in juxtaposition to a primary law that has already been passed by the Parliament of Pakistan, which is, as you know, the primary legislation. And the primary legislation here speaks of the Pakistan Digital Nation. I'm sure you know of it. The Ministry of IT with the Ministry of Planning came up with a holistic framework on what the digital structures of Pakistan will be. And then and this is perhaps the most important thing that I'll probably say today. In 2025, an authority was created called the PDA, the Pakistan Digital Authority. In the framework, in the act of the parliament, which has been now approved by the parliament and the Senate, under Section 8, subsection G, line 3, it clearly states that the Pakistan Digital Authority will have the absolute control over virtual assets, which in this case would be crypto and other digital assets that you might come across. So the law already exists. The authority already has been given to an authority, and that authority is well funded. Money has been allocated to it by the Parliament of Pakistan. It, in fact, now has to spend that money. It is the other way around, in the sense that it is not spending that money. And the reason why it is not spending that money is because there seems to be a confusion, because there's what we see is a duplicity of different powers coming in. There's a Pakistan Crypto Council that has come about. Then there is another authority that is now being created, which is called the Pakistan Digital Assets Authority. So as always, like we've discussed in the past, with many laws, we've discussed how, for instance, terrorism is being prosecuted under many different laws, under the Terrorism Act, and also under the Pakistan.
You're saying that there has to be, it has to be one umbrella. There has to be a clear cut. There needs to be consolidation.
And there is, and that's what I'm saying, and that already exists. What I want to insist here is that the Pakistan Digital Authority that has been created is a commission of 18 members, chaired by the Prime Minister, which has all the chief ministers, which has all the ministers of planning, finance, interior, all the almost major heads are already there. 18 members, making it the most one of the most powerful commissions within Pakistan that already exists. And what I'm trying to say here is that in the presence of an already existing authority, with which has come about with the primary legislation, we need to sort of put that into context when we hear about any news and anything else that is happening in Pakistan, and try to understand that in terms of the legislation that has taken place. Information wise, it's great that we are having wonderful developments, but legislation wise, the legal framework and the regulatory framework exists as I've just told you.
Right, fair enough. Let me come back to you, Safiullah. I think there's a lot of information for everyone to sort of take in, and let me come back to you on that. Dr. Usman, let's talk about the international practices at this time, the international market with the cryptocurrency at this time. What kind of a market? Of course, it's relatively new. What are the trends that you're looking at? Is it also, of course, it's volatile, but is it also very fastly growing? And the way that other economies have sort of reacted to this, the way that other countries, how do you look at that? Let's try and understand that.
Yes, it's an excellent question. It's very broad in its scope. There is a spectrum of regulatory attitudes towards crypto, from the most hostile, such as, for example, China, which says, don't get into this stuff. We will issue our own digital country, a CBDC, a central bank digital currency ourselves. Don't get into this stuff. So that's one extreme. And on the other extreme, you have El Salvador, which says Bitcoin is equal to our peso. You can use it as a legal tender. Pakistan was somewhere in the middle historically, because there was, I call it a strategic ambiguity deliberately, that we were like, we're still trying to figure it out, and we didn't issue it. It's not legal, but we need time to do that and all that. And then there is a range of other countries. For example, the US is pro-crypto, and now it's become very pro-crypto under Trump. There are some that say, well, you can own it, but don't trade it, like Cambodia. So you have a full spectrum of attitudes. In the meantime, adoption of crypto has grown. It grew exponentially during the crypto summer. So you saw a jump in 2019, just after the crypto winter. Then you saw another jump in 2024. This is driven by news cycles. This is driven by attitudes and forecasts about who will be favorable to crypto. The fact that Donald Trump has been favorable to crypto has been a huge deal for this. It has also been influential on other countries as well. But the reason that Trump has been so favorable towards crypto has much to do with the power of the crypto lobby. When we talked earlier about the decentralization of the community, that was an attitude based on anarchist philosophy, that we as a community work together. But over time, what has happened is that big players have come into this, not just individuals like you and me, but financial trading firms have gotten into this and stacked up their wallets with crypto, whether it's Ether or Bitcoin or others, and they play a large power. Plus,
and we've also seen people like Elon Musk pushing in certain coins, right?
That's correct. Their voice is very loud, and they've put money behind it, put money where their mouth is. So on both influence and on monetary side, they are significant. Therefore, they have operated as a lobby. And although they didn't directly influence Trump's victory, that was many other factors, they did bring down various congressional district, local candidates in the US who were unfavorable to crypto through their money. So that influence gave the signal to everybody in America that if you mess with the crypto lobby, you could be in trouble. And so they've gotten to mainstream politics in a big way. Based on the earlier discussion, there's two other things I wanted to point out. One was that the ambiguity that we spoke of in terms of having an umbrella, the same issue has occurred in the United States historically, where you have a Commodities and Futures Trading Commission dealing with Ether and Bitcoin because they are commodities. They're so large. But then you have the Securities and Exchange Commission, they're dealing with all the other cryptos. Then you have the Internal Revenue Service dealing on taxation. Then you have the Justice Department. So you do have this kind of bureaucratic overlap in other countries too. And the other thing is,
what about other currencies? For example, we hear so much about USDT.
Yes. The reason you hear about USDT in particular is because it's a stable coin. That means it's an intermediary between your regular dollars and cryptocurrency. So USDT has an instrumental role of reconciling the volatility of these with what is supposedly a peg of one USDT coin to $1. So it allows for an intermediation. But on the cryptocurrency side, so if you leave aside these intermediary stable coins, then you have things like Ether, you have Bitcoin, you have Solana, you have many other issuances, and it is possible for you to go online and create Mahrukh coin. It is possible. And then people can subscribe to that depending on your influence. But that's what Trump did, keep in mind, and he did make $40 billion plus. And then he dropped the price and raised a Melania coin. So there's a lot of manipulation like this that is happening in real time for us to see.
So are we looking at a Pakistani coin? Because we've been hearing so much news, and is it a possibility?
Well, there is a precedent. I think in 2018 it was floated, but it didn't particularly receive much attention. But again, this is all inference because we don't know. But its volume was not particularly large, that we do know. So you can always create your own coin. And if you're asking whether the Crypto Council may decide to issue a national coin, it is certainly possible, although it seems that their interest is in the mainstream existing coins. That's what they seem to be alluding to with the strategic reserve, because your reserve must be a portfolio of external currencies. Otherwise, it's not a reserve. Otherwise, you're just printing your own money, you see.
Let me come back to you. So, Abdullah, there's also, of course, I mean, there is a contradiction at this time. I mean, one has to acknowledge that there is, there's a government, and it's legally, if you look at it, there's the state bans crypto trading, yet it establishes a government-led Bitcoin reserve. How do the two go hand in hand?
Right. So, Mahrukh, I think the State Bank has not established government-approved Bitcoin reserve as yet. That has not happened, because for that to happen, there needs to be a legislation. So, this is something that we are hoping would happen, that Pakistan would start stacking up different cryptocurrencies in the form of a reserve. But once again, when it comes to reserves, these are things that don't particularly exist necessarily in many other countries just as yet either. A Bitcoin reserve has been announced by Donald Trump in the USA, has not been established, as he said, a Fort Knox of digital assets. That has not come about as yet. China, of course, has a lot of different cryptocurrencies that it has gotten, but not as a reserve. It does not hold them as a reserve. It just holds them as assets that it has confiscated from people they did not want doing cryptocurrency. The same case with Germany and many other countries who are currently just holding on to reserved digital assets that they have confiscated from criminal activity. Countries creating a reserve for the sake of holding on to an asset, just like, for instance, countries have gold reserves so that the value would grow over time, or for instance, countries having a dollar reserve, just like our state bank concentrates constantly on improving its dollar reserves. That is something that we have not seen in Pakistan, or for that matter in many other countries when it comes to digital assets. But that said, I do want to say here that this is a debate that is taking place all over the world. Everywhere they are talking about establishing reserves. And I have absolutely no doubt that if Pakistan were to establish a reserve, then Pakistan would probably do very well. I do want to give an example of one country, by the way, which has not announced publicly a reserve, but we know that it holds considerable reserves, and that is Bhutan, which has been mining cryptocurrency and has been holding on to those reserves. And there is public information as to the large number of cryptocurrency that they hold at the moment in the form of Bitcoin or
Talk
various
about
other
mining
currencies.
also, but Safila, what about the dangers of, for example, money laundering? That is something that is
Yeah.
also being talked about, right?
Yeah.
So
No,
do you
this is
think
so.
that
This is a fantastic question. Yeah, this is a great question. First off, I just want to say that when it comes to stats, 2% of cash is money laundered, and about 0.6% of crypto is money laundered. So cryptocurrency, by its very nature, has a lesser degree of money laundering. The reason why that is the case is because it's very easy to track it. Every cryptocurrency is done on a transparent blockchain. It's an immutable ledger. So if you were to money launder, you would, in all certainties, leave a permanent record of that transaction for someone to catch on to at some point of time. We need to differentiate between centralized finance and decentralized finance. In the DeFi world, people do, of course, have bad players in which they use anonymous wallets, and they use dexes and tumblers and mixers, various other tools to try and get their money across without getting into the technicalities of it. I mean, keeping it just high level. In the centralized world, money laundering is almost next to impossible, and whoever does any money laundering almost always gets caught. The prime example is the case of CZ himself, who was convicted of money laundering, not for obviously doing money laundering himself, but for allowing Binance to do money laundering and not sort of keeping the checks in, and that led to a massive conviction in which he was in jail for 4 months. So what we need to understand is that crypto is perhaps the best tool against money laundering. The best way to launder money, Maruf, is gold, cash. If you and I put money in a duffel, cash and jewelry in a duffel bag, carry it to Dubai, we would probably not get caught. We would probably just walk through customs without any problems. But if I transfer money through crypto, I would have left a permanent transaction that, if eventually when caught, will lead to a certain conviction, and that is certain proof. So when it comes to money laundering and terrorist finance, of course it has been used. It will always be used because it is an important asset, but it is also the
But
most
for
dangerous
that,
asset
wouldn't you
that could
need
be used for money laundering.
Safula? But for
And
that, wouldn't you need access? No,
provided
but for
that the
that,
law
wouldn't you need
enforcement
access to
how
blockchain?
to catch it. So if in Pakistan the FIA is not trained on catching money launderers.
Need access. I think there's a problem with Safullah. I think the same question to you, Dr. Usman, but you would need access to blockchain to be able to, for that kind of transparency that Safullah is talking about.
Yes, and although there's a good point made about leaving a permanent mark, that doesn't mean you can prosecute it. For example, a very significant hacking group stems from North Korea. Now we know that, and they've left that permanent mark, but what are you going to do about it? And you can pay for arms, you can pay for drugs and stuff online with this stuff. So just because you leave a mark doesn't mean they're going to catch you, and so you still can do this, so it still can and is a conduit for that. Now it is true that 0.6% of crypto is used for money laundering according to the eds, which is less than cash, but there's a ton of cash out there. So just the volumes, it's not a comparable size.
Fair enough. I think I'm going to go. Safullah, I think that can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I dropped off. I don't know why.
Yeah, but we were talking about this, and I think Dr. Usman also, he raises a very interesting point. Just because it leaves a trace doesn't mean we can do anything about it, right? And also the fact that you would need access to blockchain for there to be that kind of transparency, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no doubt. So this is what I'm saying, right? So in order to catch it, then you need law enforcement authorities who know how to catch it. Like, if they don't know how to catch it, then obviously you can't do anything. And I think one of the best examples that I could give you right now is the one of the recent hacks that's very famous hack. It's called the BuyBit hack, which is $2 billion plus, done by Lazarus. Now let's just explore this hack, and this will give us just about all the information that we need. So Lazarus, North Korean hacking group, conducted this incredible hack from a major crypto exchange, took out $2 billion. Now, same mechanics would apply to money laundering, to terrorist financing, everything. Here's what happened. The world got together very quickly. Everybody got together and they started blocking those wallets from being able to access any centralized finance wallet. Why they need centralized finance wallets most of the times is because it allows what you would call an off ramp and an on ramp. The idea that you could change that crypto for cash and use that cash. So what's happened essentially is that that cash is now lying, and those people are unable to move it anywhere because law authorities all over the world have gotten together and have encircled them, because they know what those addresses are. And even though you might not know who the identities of the people are, you might not know the criminals themselves, but what you have is you have isolated those wallets from being able to access any other platform that would allow them to use that cryptocurrency in a useful manner. And why I think this is a global success is because this shows that if law authorities work together in conjunction with all the other different centralized exchanges in a united manner, they can enforce it to a degree, provided once again what's most important is that law authorities understand how to do it. And in Bybit's case they did, but I'm fairly certain that if something of this sort were to happen in Pakistan, they would not know what to do, and that is why people would get away with it. So the first step before even legalizing crypto is to educate our law enforcement authorities on what crypto is, how to track crypto, how to get crypto, so that when crime happens, which it inevitably will, it will always follow, they know what to do. And we need to have the tools for that. And there are very many tools for that. There's crystal intelligence, Arkham, whatever. Like, I'm not going to get into the details of the many tools that people use. And once again, there's one more important thing here, Maruf, that I want to add. It's not just my wishful thinking. This is also our legal requirement. These are our commitments to IMF. These are our commitments to FATF. We got out of the FATF grey list, and we got out of the when we got out of the FATF grey list, there were plenary sessions held on digital assets as well. So we have to put in a sizable number of controls as per our commitments to the FATF before we can start transacting in crypto. And I just hope that those sizable measures are taken as quickly as possible so that Pakistan can truly benefit from the wonders of crypto as they stand.
Let me come back to you on that. Dr. Usman, what about with regard to mining and, of course, Bhutan as an example? At this time, are we going to, is it going to be able to explore that potential? How are you looking at things from the crypto perspective?
In terms of all of the operations that we can do, I consider mining to be the least lucrative and the least attractive because of the non-renewable nature of how we would mine it. We're going to burn fossil fuels to do this. We don't necessarily use hydropower. We don't necessarily have that much spare electricity. If you are allocating 2,000 megawatts to this, why don't you allocate that to your industry? Why don't you allocate that to your mainstream industry? And above all, you would fix your distribution and transmission in your power grid to get out to the people. The other thing is, the competition in mining is very, very severe. When we take the Bhutanese example, Bhutan has hydropower because of the Himalayas. For them, this is a renewable thing. The other major mining area is Paraguay, which has the Iguazu Falls. So it's non-stop flow of water, and you have this renewable thing. Do you really want to compete on coal with that? Plus, for example, in Iceland, when they mine there, the heat generated from that is used to heat the homes. There's a circularity and sustainability to that. For us to burn coal to do this, we are not in the same league. And there isn't a guarantee that you will be able to mine what you expect to mine because it's probabilistic. The way mining works is it's backwards encryption. So you have two prime numbers to get at one prime number. That's the easy part. But when you try to work backwards, it's actually very hard. And so you have to generate a lot of computing power to work through the solution.
But isn't it true that in terms of, of course, the change in weather patterns also, and what we are looking at in terms of melting glaciers and that as far as our hilly areas are concerned, and also the fact that the government must be factoring in those hydropower projects that are also in the pipeline at this time. So those could probably, also work for us in the same way as hydropower is for other countries.
Well, you're correct that we have a lot of hydropower coming online soon. That is true. In any case, I still would prefer the mainstream economy and have, for example, cheaper energy for our industry. And then again, we are now competing for the last bitcoins that are out there because there is a finite amount that is to be emitted. And most of that, there was a time when you could mine a bitcoin on your phone. That's how little the computing power was. Now you're going to burn all these fossil fuels or even some hydro, fine, but you would be doing so much of this with the chance that you might get it. That ultimately depends on your expectation of the price of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin stays where it is, it's probably not worth it for you. But if Bitcoin goes to $1 million per Bitcoin, then it would be worth it. So you're playing probabilistically with the resources you have at the chance that you might have some of this. And then again, you have your wallet, let's say you have a strategic reserve. What is to say that that wallet isn't going to get hacked? You think India won't target it if they can? You have a wallet here that you have stashed all your bitcoins. It is very vulnerable. No matter how hard, unless you take it off and you keep it cold, there are ways, but I don't know. It seems like a scary thing.
For example, for our problem, as far as, these 200 megawatts to generate it for economy at this time, for as far as our circular debt is concerned, do you think that's an option?
I honestly think that the circular debt thing has to be resolved.
2,000 megawatts.
2,000 megawatts. It's a lot bigger than 200.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Just the volume that is required of all things. Mining isn't the most lucrative. It isn't our natural advantage. What you should be aiming for is to empower your people. There are people who have crypto, so have a regularized framework for them to trade and own, and so you can tax it too. Work on the consumer because that is your strength, rather than trying to compete with Paraguay and Bhutan and Iceland because they have this cut cold, and all the mining investment has gone into places like this where they know they can serve a larger public good.
Also, another thing I think is AI mega data centers at this time, and all over, and the fact that they are also quite lucrative. Do you think that that's something we can also perhaps channelize?
I absolutely do, because data centers give you a storage and it's almost a national security thing, because in the era of knowledge that we live, destroying data centers makes you very vulnerable, and if you are parking your data somewhere else, then it's obviously easier to have intrusions into it. So for your sovereignty of data, it is important to have it locally, but this is a dimension that is separate from crypto, because you wouldn't need crypto to have data centers for AI, for whatever. We do need those for our national sovereignty and data protection. We do.
Let me go to Safiullah. Of course, this is something relatively new, and as such, it will be surrounded by a certain level of doubt, and we need to sort of realize and of course anticipate the trends, and we have to and whatever challenges that come with it. Do you think that we are looking at a this ban possibly going away, considering where things are headed with regard to cryptocurrency?
Before I begin, Mahrukh, may I just quickly please pay compliments to Chohan Sahab, who's with you. I'm very, very happy with the wonderful analytical approach that he has on all of these things, because you see, it's important to understand these things. What's happened is an announcement came that we'll start mining Bitcoin. Everybody is like, oh wow, wonderful, we're going to be rich. What a great idea! And what he's done is he's encapsulated these thoughts and understood why not every announcement may be a good announcement. And this was fantastic. So I'll just sort of add on to whatever he said as a means of explaining why spending 2000 megawatts of our energy on Bitcoin mining might not be a good idea. Firstly, because only 5% Bitcoin are left now in the world. There's a finite supply. We are at the last 5% right now. And as he said, the computing power required to utilize them is immense. So we are now, and at a time when the top 10 Bitcoin mining companies, nine have just quit their operations. Of the top 10, the top nine have officially quit their operations. Mercury, which was the biggest one, has also quit their operation. So trying to get into this mining process now when all the miners are leaving. And also one little piece of information, where for mining Bitcoin, they use these things called ant miners. The estimated cost of putting up ant miners for utilizing 2000 megawatts of energy is $1.8 billion. I'm not quite certain where that revenue will come from, because it's not the electricity alone that you will be able to needing to put in. You also need to put in a lot of computers, and that hardware costs a lot of money. So it's necessary to understand these from a slightly more critical perspective, to see where we can play to our advantage. And like he said, in Iceland and in Paraguay and Bhutan, the renewability aspect has been something that has assisted them a lot. In our case, we can't just burn coal for Bitcoin mining. That does not make financial sense whatsoever, at least for now. And if looking at present rates, when it's quite high, the return on investment is 4 years, by which time it would have peaked at 21 million anyways. So that's one thing. Secondly, regarding your question
But of
of
course, there's also, like we discussed earlier, with Usman Saab also here, it's possible it's for AI data centers. That's also something that as an option is great, like Usman Saab is saying, right?
That 100%, that we need AI data centers. After Pakistan won the information war, the land and the water and the air and the digital space war from India, and now the whole world is waking up to the idea of Pakistan being a regional power. We are now beginning to understand that one facet of the information war is also AI, because AIs can be trained on subject matters, and therefore we need to have our own data sets that are constantly training our own LLMs. And also, if you just to sort of understand how war is evolving, the very idea of a sixth generation fighter plane is, for instance, an AI driven fighter plane. And the modern tanks and modern drones are going to be AI drones. They're not going to be manned by people. So obviously, even from a security perspective, we need AI. From a national sovereignty perspective, we need AI data centers. And there's regardless of whether they are profitable or not, they are still essential. So I don't think Pakistan should skimp out on those. Those go without that. The second, your question was about the legalization of Bitcoin, and
Yeah, how soon do you see this encapsulated in a clear legal framework, in your opinion? What kind of a timeline do you expect?
let's understand the concern first, Maruk. So then we understand how long. See, Pakistan's biggest concern apart from terrorist financing and money laundering, is capital flight. Pakistan is one of those countries where money is flowing out of Pakistan, and some of the highest amounts of money is being flown out of Pakistan. One of the biggest problems that the state bank is facing is requests from companies and from individuals who are trying to cash out their assets in Pakistan and take them abroad. But the state bank has to maintain national reserves, so it's maintaining a very strict policy on what can go out of Pakistan. With crypto, what you're basically doing is you're basically giving everyone blanket permission to take their money out of Pakistan. Will Pakistan want that? No, not as crypto stands. So, what Pakistan could do is Pakistan could take an approach like what India is doing. India is developing this app called Inbound app, which is an inwards remittance app. So, you can bring crypto into Pakistan, but you cannot take money out of Pakistan. And how you could take money, bring it into Pakistan and keep it in Pakistan is by integrating it with Rust. And as you know, Maruf, I live in Brazil. In Brazil, they have this instant payment system, which is like our Rust, which is called Pix. And then they have their cryptocurrency settlement system, which is called Drex. And Pix and Drex are integrated. So we have seen this successfully in many other countries. China is also experimenting with an integration of their financial system, their financial settlement system with the crypto settlement system. And that would allow for only inward money coming in, not outside. So Pakistan would maintain its reserves and Pakistan would give you money still in rupees. You will not maybe ever hold Bitcoin. If you hold Bitcoin, Pakistan would enter into a sort of a situation where Pakistan continues to hold a large number of keys. And the reason, once again, it's not because I'm, as you know, I'm a very big proponent of crypto, but we need to understand that Pakistan is facing this huge crisis of capital flight outside of Pakistan. This, when we give examples of Dubai, Dubai has nothing to lose, right? If they legalize crypto and if they go all out, because they're recipients of crypto. They are getting money from all over the world, and maybe $20 billion of Pakistani money is parked in Dubai, which has probably gone to Dubai via crypto, or at least crypto was one of the channels. So why would Dubai want to, sort of stop Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana, whatever have you, any of these currencies from coming
Right.
into
It's all the
Pakistan?
time that we have.
Pakistan has
Thank you
everything to
so
lose.
much. Right. So we have our own concerns, of course. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Usman Chohan. Thank you for your very valuable time. Barrister Safi, Ghauri, thank you for being with us. Of course, at this time, with this relatively new for Pakistan, the government is of course factoring in a lot of these issues, a lot of these challenges, and from an analytical point of view, we sort of wanted to explore the potential of it and also discuss, how and where's and how does the government plan to go about it, whether it's AI centers or AI data centers or mining, and of course all those options being open at this time. It's certainly been a very interesting show for me, at least, being able to understand where and how cryptocurrency is headed, and especially for Pakistan, and the enormous potential it seems to indicate for us. Thank you so much for joining us today.